Hi, this is Misha, and today we're just out firing a couple of different Colt 9mm AR types. In my hands is an early 2000s production Colt 6450 9mm carbine. Pretty standard. Looks a lot like a XM or a 653 or any other Colt, but it's in 9mm. We've had this gun for a couple of years now, just have shot it several times, and it's always proven to be fun and reliable, inexpensive to fire, and just kind of an understated gun. Nothing spectacular about it. It's a 9mm AR. It's an AR. Does AR things. We've got a 16-inch barrel. It's pretty much a pencil profile with a 1-in-10 twist rate. We have an A1 style flash hider, bayonet lug, CAR-15 type handguards. The upper receiver on the 9mm is a little different. No forward assist, as you can see, and we have this large polymer gas deflector. A lot of people call this a brass deflector. It is not. It's to keep gas from blowing back, especially if you have a suppressor on. Because of it, we have a shorter dust cover. We have an A1 style carry handle. The rear sight has been recalibrated for 9mm. Starts off at about 50 yards. Typical charging handle, typical tube. These can either have CAR-15 style stocks, the Fiberlight, or they can have the newer M4, or they can even have the Rogers stock. This gun's been in production a long time, so they've done a lot of different things. The lower, pretty well standard AR lower. It feeds from Uzi style mags, although they have this cutout to work with an AR-15 pattern mag catch. To work in, what am I doing here? I don't know. To work in a full-size AR-15 lower, we actually have an insert that goes into the mag well, and then it's held in with roll pins. This insert contains the, let's crack it open, the easiest. I did that to keep the bolt from just sliding out. The insert contains the feed ramp in the front, the ejector, and part of a modified 2-piece bolt hold open system. The hammer is also different. This has Colt's semi-automatic hammer. Newer models actually just use a standard full auto type hammer. You need the taller, heavier hammer for 9mm. The trigger is the same, safety is the same. The buffer is a heavy, solid 9mm buffer. The bolt is a single piece unit. It's not a carrier and a bolt, it's just a single bolt. It has a spring-loaded firing pin, and it has a weight in the back to ensure proper functioning. It's pinned in here to the back of the carrier. Since this is a 9mm, it's a direct blowback, closed bolt. It does not have a gas system, and the upper receiver is not drilled for the gas tube. Other than that, pretty well the same. Flip it over here for you. So, a little bit in the history. After Colt had the Carbine series, like the XM177, XM177E2, and the GAL series, a few enterprising individuals made AR-15s and 9mm in the 70s. But it really wasn't until 1982 that work at Colt began on making a 9mm submachine gun and eventually a semi-automatic carbine. Really, the design team would be headed by Hank Tetreault, who also did a lot of other projects at Colt during the mid-80s, and by 1985 the gun was ready for market. The original 635 was a select fire machine gun. I believe it was the 3-round burst version, and the 639 was the full auto. I may have those reversed, sorry if I do. And they also made a model called the 634, which was the same as the 635, but it was semi and safe only, and this was for law enforcement. These would all look the same as this gun here, except they would have a 10.5-inch barrel, which ended about right here. They would be marketed to police departments, and the U.S. Marines would be one of the largest purchasers. Also, the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, would purchase quite a few of these 9mm Colts during the late 80s, early 90s. Sometime a little bit later, 86, give or take, Colt would introduce the 6450 6450 model. Really the same model as this, but different. They would introduce it in the 80s. The first ones would just have a 2-position collapsing stock, and they would even lack this gas deflector, but soon they would add those. They would keep it into production until about 1992. Then they would replace it with the 6430 6430, which was a government, how to say this, it was the time of gun control, so they were trying to appease people in government and in the public. Really all it was the same gun, except it didn't have a bayonet lug. It also introduced large trigger pins and stuff, so you couldn't drop in a standard full auto trigger group. At least that was the theory. But that wasn't good enough. In 1994, the federal assault weapons ban was passed, and they had to introduce the MT6430, which had a fixed butt stock and lacked the flash hider. Otherwise, still the same gun. And that would stay in production until about 2004, when they would reintroduce the 6450 as the AR6951, and it's this version here. This is one that was made probably right at the end of the assault weapons ban, or right after, because it still has the LE only row markings on it, which they would continue shipping guns with those row markings till 2007, 2008, but I don't know how long ago those receivers were initially made, so they could have been older stock receivers that were coming out of warehouse. Either that kind of gives a time frame for when this one was made. And again, it's really just a 9mm AR15. Shot real well for us. Now another version you saw us shooting is this here. This is a Colt 633, often called the DOE, Department of Energy model. Now, to be exact, this is a complete original Colt DOE upper, and most of the lower parts for that matter as well. And it's on a Rock River Colt 9mm compatible lower. And of course, it's set up as a pistol with a SB15 tube and brace that I found laying around in my parts bin when I put this together last week. So, set it up as a pistol for now. This is a really neat gun. Whereas the standard 635 machine gun had a 10.5-inch barrel, this has a shortened 7-inch barrel. It also has a unique handguard, which is an interesting combination of A1 and A2. The vent holes are very A1. The material it's made out of and having the halves top to bottom is very A1. But the fact that it's circular is very much A2 with a taper. So you can tell that it was made during the transitional time. We have this interesting cap in the front, which kind of limits the hand, at least lets you know when you're getting close. That's good, because we just have a barrel sticking out. Most of these, if not all, sold did not have threaded barrels. They were just short here. Have a standard sling swivel in the front, but it cannot rotate forward, so it won't get in front of the barrel. And the front side is really interesting. It actually folds for storage. See, it's got two detent places. It is adjustable, like a regular AR15 front sight. It has protective ears, so it's got the full features, but it folds. We have a standard delta ring, and everything in the back here is the same. Carry handle, all that. Now, the reason I chose the Rock River lower is that it really mimics the look of the original Colt, taking original Colt mags, yet it doesn't use the insert. It is custom made, special made for Colt mags, which is great. Again, so my bolt won't slide out. You can see it has the same ejector system. Now this has a different pattern of Colt 9mm bolt hold open. Instead of the two-piece in the 6450 we just looked at, this is a single-piece design. Colt has, this was original, then they went to the two-piece, then they went back to this one-piece in more recent years. Feed ramp still here. When I ordered this from Rock River, I ordered just a stripped virgin lower so I could build it up as a pistol. And I was very happy to see that while it was still a virgin, never put together lower, they at least had the courtesy to already have the mag catch, the bolt release, and the ejector, and the feed ramp. All that still was already pre-installed, which is pretty neat. One other thing to show you about the DOE, and this is a machine gun thing. This bolt is a heavy bolt. Because this was originally out of a machine gun kit, it's actually a two-piece design. That's again just for proper functioning, and actually the DOEs had a slower rate of fire than the full size, believe it or not. But they designed these really so they would be compact enough to fit in a briefcase. And also they liked the idea of 9mm because they would issue these to be used in nuclear power plants, and they were worried about over-penetration. So it was light, easy, and, you know, all that. I'm sure a few other small departments would also purchase these. Colt made the 633 for quite a number of years, although they never made it a civilian pistol version. That would have been pretty neat. This upper, they would come around occasionally. I've had it for a couple of years now and didn't know what to do with it. I just picked it up because the price was right, and I always thought there was a really neat variant. But yeah, that's pretty much the Colt 9mm. Aside from Marine adoption by the U.S., only a few other small military units have ever used these, but they have seen use, and they still are in production today. They've gone through a few different styles. For example, the magwell insert originally was a single piece with a screw to lock it in. Then they went to a two-piece with 4 roll pins to hold it in. And in 2001 they introduced the modern style, which was again a one piece with 2 roll pins to hold it in. So they have updated the design, you know, occasionally. We'll move on. Alright, when we're back from the range, we looked at the Colt 6450, and we looked at a semi-auto build using a Colt 633 DOE upper and other parts of the gun. And just to kind of show you the completion of where Colt's at today with their 9mm series line, we have an AR6951, 6951. As the name implies, this is very, very closely related to their 6920 series, which is what they would call their current M4 semi-auto version. But again, it's in 9mm. So we have essentially the same pretty thin profile 16-inch barrel with a 1 in 10 twist weight, chrome lined. We still actually use an A1 flash hider, bayonet lug, bottom sling swivel here. We have modern M4 double heat shield handguard. We now have a flat top, and this comes standard with a Magpul backup sight. The upper is otherwise the same. It is worth noting that it looks like they use the same basic forging for the 223 because you can tell where the forward assist was machined off. We're still using the more modern single piece insert. About the only internal change I've noticed is they've now gone to the standard, let me release this here, full hammer with the hook. Otherwise the bolt group and all that's pretty well the same. Looks like an M4 type lower. It's got the web in here. Also, they do have safe and fire now marked on the right side of the lower, which is something they started doing with a lot of their Carbine type lowers. I suppose all their lowers a few years ago. Still have a A2 grip, and now we have the modern M4 stock on a 4-position tube. Otherwise, yeah, it is essentially a M4, but in 9mm as opposed to 223. And they've been selling these since, I suppose about 2013, maybe 2014. The earlier ones would have the Rogers Super Stock, but in the last couple of years they've returned back to the classic M4, which I think was a good call. And by the way, this still takes the standard Colt mags, which are the modified Uzi mags. They come with 32 rounders. You can still also get the slightly shorter 25 rounders. So yeah, that was just kind of a shooting look at a few different eras in the Colt 9mm SMG and Carbine series. I will say that when I was getting my DOE upper and trying to research it, about the only source I could find for good detailed information was Chris Bartocci on Small Arms Solutions, and that was 5 years ago, so that's probably the first time I really heard of him, and he's been a really good source for good Colt information. He also had quite a bit of info on the Colt M16 LMG that I have, so when it comes to the more obscure Colts, he's been infinitely helpful, and he was the one who actually suggested the Rock River lower to me when I told him that I wanted something like a Colt 9mm lower, but I needed it something that wasn't Colt because I wanted to build it into a pistol. As you know, you can't make a Carbine, a registered long rifle lower into a pistol. It's legal minutiae, but I try to stick with the law. So yeah, thanks to Chris. He's very helpful, and if you haven't checked out his channel, please do so. If you like AR-15s, especially military grade ones that are US made or good foreign versions, check him out. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. We really appreciate you tuning in. And if you like the video, please click. If you haven't already subscribed, if you have time, we'd really like if you do that too. As always, this is Misha, and we'll catch you next time.